So hello and welcome to the module 3 of AZ-700 where we're going to discuss about Azure Express Route. Now, if I briefly explain you about the Azure Express Route, then it gives you private one-on-one connectivity between Microsoft Azure and your private facility, maybe your data center, maybe your branch office, so on and so forth. Now, if you ask me that, okay, it is a public cloud platform. I have been using it very nicely over with the portal. Then why do I need to have a one-on-one facility? What is the need of having a private connection with Microsoft Azure? Now, this may not be a very big issue for your company, but for many organizations, internet is not a very great option for transferring their sensitive data. And for that, they look for a cost-effective option for which they can um, have a private connectivity so that their data is not flowing through the internet. Because if I tell you that, okay, internet is having a lot of bad people, and many people do not want their data to be going through internet, and for that purposes they need their data to be gone through a very secure network where they know that the data is encrypted, where they know that, okay, the data is flowing in a safe and steady manner. So for these kind of reasons, they prefer Azure Express Route. So if I tell you that how actually internet works, then internet is, we as we all know, that internet is interconnection of various autonomous networks. So as you can see from the diagram also, like if you are residing your data center in Canada and you have another data center in Canada, and if you're traversing them through internet, then it will be going through a bunch of routers. Now it may or may not be possible that the path is taking the path which is your packet is taking to get from Canada to Mexico will be the fastest and the optimal path. There is no guarantee for this. And also because it is going through the internet, there will be a lot of people, so your data is also not secure. So to address these kind of problems, we have the facility of Azure Express Route. So with Azure Express Route, you have private connection to Microsoft Azure and to Office 365. So in this module, we're going to learn about how can we deploy our own private connection in Microsoft Azure. And by private connection, I mean that you will be having your own cables, which will be connecting your location, your facility with Microsoft Azure data centers. Now, if you ask me that, okay, so do I need to lay down the cables from Azure data center to this? Well, the answer is no. You just have to express your desire for having a private connection by using some clicks in portal, and then Azure or your partner network will be taking care of that. So as we move ahead, we're going to learn about that how actually it works. So firstly, let me answer that how can Azure Express Route or Express Route can help you address your problems. So if I uh, ask you what are the major concerns of the people, what they don't like about the internet is, the very first is the, you can say, the latency or speed, because as I saw in the diagram as well, the internet is nothing but a bunch of routers, so it may or may not take an optimal path. Now if you ask me that, okay, I have been using Azure for a little while, and whenever I send a ping request then it will be reaching in milliseconds. Well, you are absolutely correct, but whenever it comes to a large amount of data, maybe 1 TB of data, and for each TB maybe you are getting 2 millisecond latency for each, maybe each GB of data. Whenever you multiply that, whenever you multiply this latency with a terabyte of data, then you can imagine that how much latency will be causing you eventually, right? So the very first concern is speed. The second concern is bandwidth. If you need to, if you need to transfer a huge amount of data, then also it will take a lot of time. And of course, the connection is not the connection is not private. It is a public connection. Whenever you come, so whenever you start transferring through internet, so these are some of the concerns that company have regarding internet. Concerns regarding internet. So the list is not limited to only these 3 points. There are many other concerns as well. So if you have a sensitive data, maybe imagine that you are working for a vaccine manufacturer company, and there are very high chances that your vaccine formula may be stolen by your competitive companies. Just for imagination purposes, we can think of such a reason. So you want a private connection. You want some kind of security. You want some kind of assurance that okay, my data, I know that it is very highly secure. Now to address these kind of problems, to address these kind of concerns, and because we all know that Microsoft is a global company, it already have a lot of data centers, a lot of cables spread around all over the world. As you can see from this diagram as well, that all over the globe, the Microsoft is having their Azure locations, their data centers, and their cables laid down, as you can see. And the image courtesy belongs to Microsoft. So as you can see, the every continent is being connected by Microsoft network. So the people at Azure, the management of Microsoft Azure, they thought that why don't we leverage this facility? Why don't we leverage this benefit? So by this, they gave you 3 options of connectivity for privately connecting to Microsoft Azure. So if you ask me the connectivity options, then there are 3 actually connectivity options by which you can connectly private to Microsoft and Office 365 apps. So that means through Express Route you can connect to your IaaS infrastructure services, your PaaS services, that means your platform services like app services, and even your SaaS services like Office 365, SharePoint Online, etc. So the very first is that you choose a partner, and through that partner you are like the partner may be Verizon, the partner may be AT&T, the partner may be Airtel. So with these partners, you ask the partner that okay, you are connected to Microsoft Azure backbone network. You are connected to this backbone network which is spread by Azure, because Azure have a lot of CDNs, lot of facilities. Co-location facilities means Azure has partners with many other companies like Airtel, AT&T, Verizon, CloudFront, so on and so forth, because of their content delivery networks and Azure front door, right? So for this, they have a lots of co-location facilities, and maybe one of this facility is near your data center. Then you can go to them that okay boss, give me a cable connection from your facility to my data center, and then you make sure that that cable connection from your facility is connecting to Microsoft Azure. So this is known as cloud exchange co-location. This method of express route is known as cloud exchange co-location. Now and also have a second connectivity option which is point to point Ethernet connection. So with point to point Ethernet connection, you lay down the cables, and then you make sure that okay, these are known as meet me connections. So and there are various meet me points where Azure have their what we can say, Azure have their infrastructure which is actually connected to Microsoft Azure data centers. So with this, you lay down a cable. Not you lay down a cable. Actually, you ask for such a kind of private connection, and then Azure makes sure that your data center is actually connected to Microsoft Azure services. That means you'll be able to browse your virtual machines, you'll be able to browse your infrastructure services, your platform services, and even SaaS services like Microsoft 365, and all of the data will not be going through internet. All of the data will be going through your cables, right? So with this, you you solved your concerns, because the concerns, well, the very first concern was of latency or speed, because you don't know that whether the internet will be taking the optimal path. Because you have your own cables laid down, then internet has no role to play over here. And finally um, you can solve your first issue, which is of latency. The second one is of bandwidth. Now Azure Express Route gives you up to 100 Gbps. That means 100 GB per seconds of speed. Now with that, you also solve your second concern, which is bandwidth. So if you have high amounts of data, then you can also share that with Azure Express Route. Now you also solve your third concern, which was a public connection, because Azure Express Route is highly secure. So with this, you make sure that okay, I'm able to solve all of these concerns, and with this, I am able to give a private connection. So this was a brief introduction about Azure Express Route. So as we move ahead, we're going to also learn about the facilities, the capabilities of Microsoft Azure. And if you ask me that, okay, if Express is a very costly services, then as we move ahead to the features, then eventually we will head towards the pricing of Microsoft Azure Express Route. So as I mentioned, because it is a private cable connection, so you get layer 3 connectivity with redundancy. That means it is highly secure, and you can also connect all of the regions. So if you have your data center on if you have your data center on India, so through a co-location facility, you actually connect it to the Microsoft backbone network, which is distributed all around the globe. So with this, you are not, if you have different if you have the suitable express route created, then you can connect globally to every data center of Microsoft Azure with a private connection. So with this, you don't have to bother about your connectivity problems. That means your, and uh, you can also connect, you can have a high bandwidth, as you can see from here, from 50 mbps to 100 gbps. And also, if you ask me that it is a very expensive services, then as I mentioned, it is not, because you have three billing models. So as per the billing models, the features and the facilities also changes. So if you ask me that, okay, where can I find about that, how can I lay down the express route, how can I find out what is the co-location facility near me, then you can head towards Microsoft Azure website. So let me head to that. Let me, please give me a moment. So here you can find for express route. So you can go to azure.microsoft.com and then head towards express route. As you scroll down, you can find an option of express route location providers. So let me find that option. Okay, let me find that option. Or let me give a quick Google search. Let me go to express route location providers. So with this web page you can, oh, I yeah, so in this web page you can find about the various partners and peering locations for your Azure Express Route. So as you can see, there is for each and every geopolitical region, whether it's Australia, it's Europe, North America, you have various, you have a list of Azure regions and express route locations. So as you can see, in Europe you have Amsterdam, Two locations: Amsterdam, Berlin, Dublin, a lot of regions. In India as well, you have Chennai and Mumbai and Pune. And because we know that we have our Azure India, that means the Central India region located in Pune, your West India region in Mumbai, and your South India region in Chennai. So you can also have a co-location facility for this. So by this you can find about that, okay, what are the connectivity that means the co-location facilities, and where can I connect with that, as you can see over here. So you can always feel free to come to this page, and you can also see the service provider list. Like for India, we have Airtel as a service provider, which supports Chennai 2 and Mumbai 2 locations, right? So for AT&T, you have Amsterdam, Chicago, Dallas, and all this. So you can always come to this page. And BSNL also supports, which is a national company for India, supports Azure Express Route connections. So by knowing all of these things, you can simply go to and create an Azure Express Route circuit, then connect to these your providers, whether BSNL or Airtel in case of India, and then you can ask them to, okay, now spread a fiber optic cable from my data center to your, or eventually to Azure, and give me a private connection, right? So with this, you have your problem sorted. Now, if you ask me that, okay, is there the only features of Microsoft Azure Express Route? Do it only solve this much of problems? Then this is the answer is straight away no. It gives you a lot and lot features. And for understanding the features, we first need to understand the use cases for Express Route. Now, as I mentioned, it gives you a faster and reliable connection to your Azure services and to all three kind of services, whether it's infrastructure service, your platform service, or your software service. That means software as a service. Now, one of the use case for this could be storage, backups, and recovery. Now, by that I mean that if you have a legacy data center and now you wanted to embrace cloud, then for replication purposes, whenever you are replicating your data from your on-premises to the Microsoft cloud, then you can use ExpressRoute as one of the way to trans transfer the data with minimum latency and in the fastest manner. Of course, in a reliable way. And it also extends your data center capabilities. Now, if you ask me how, then the possible answer could be that you can enforce the hybrid scenarios. So where you have some kind of applications, most part is running on public cloud as well as your on-premises as well. And because you have Express route laid down, you have your own fiber cable laid down. So with this, you make sure that applications is not suffering from latencies, is not underperforming. Now we also provide an SLA of 99% with Microsoft Express Route. That means if you ask me that, okay, if there is any SLA, if there's any chances of connection lost in the case of the cables, then we also provide an SLA. And ExpressRoute uses MPLS and BGP. So with this, if you already have an existing multi-protocol label switching, that is MPLS, through which you connect your various other facilities, so you can also leverage this power with Microsoft Azure as well. Like for example, you have various data centers connected through MPLS, then you can extend that MPLS and make Azure as an extra node of that MPLS circuit, right? So you're going to explore all of these options as we move ahead. So these were the connectivity models. Now to connect to the backbone network of Microsoft Azure, as you know that Microsoft Azure is a global network, we have got three connectivity options. So the very first connectivity options is a cloud exchange co-location facility. That means you, which are also known as maybe your, yeah, right? So in that co-location facility, you reach to their facility, you ask them to extend their connection to your data center, and then bingo, you are connected to Microsoft Azure in a private manner. Now the second one is a point-to-point Ethernet connection. As we know that Ethernet gives you is a cable through which you can connect your services. So by using various service providers, you can also request for an Ethernet connection, or you can also use MPLS. You can also use Azure WAN, as we saw in the previous module. that Azure WAN can leverage various connectivity options where you have your express route laid down, where you have your VNet peering, where you have your site-to-site VPN connections, and you can manage all of these different kind of topologies, all of these different kind of network architectures under one umbrella, and that is known as Azure Virtual WAN. So you can also do that. Now there's also more, you can say, advantageous connection which is known as direct model and express route direct. So with this, because in all of these three things, three options, we have a partner in between our connection of Microsoft data center and our data center. Like for example, Airtel or BSNL, so on. Now you can request the Microsoft tool to that means ignore or avoid any partner in between their connection, and you have a direct connection from your facility to Microsoft. No partners in between. So with this we have an express direct route option. And there's also certain design considerations for express route deployment because you need to have a strong reasons for for lay down an express route. So whenever your service requires fast connection, right, and you already have an existing infrastructure, so you can go for express route direct, which gives you 100 Gbps infrastructure and full management of all layers. That means from layer 1 to layer 7, from physical layer to application layer, you have the of the OSI model, you have the full control. Then okay, what kind of cables I'm laid down, and also you have MACsec. That means you can enable encryption at layer 2, right, where we use MAC addresses. So with this, you can make sure that even you have your own cables attached, then also your data flowing into that cable is in encrypted manner through MACsec, right? And you can integrate hundreds of providers using Ethernet or MPLS. And you can, so there's also various SKUs available, and, based on the SKUs, you have your connectivity options. Like whenever you go for a standard SKU for Microsoft Express Route, then you are only allowed to connect to a particular geographical region. That means if you choose a region for maybe USA and with the standard SKU of Express Route, then you can only connect to the data centers of USA region only. You can't connect to the data centers in Hong Kong or Asia Pacific region. So for this, you need to upgrade yourself to the premium region of Express Route, and with premium SKU, you also get global connectivity as well as a very high bandwidth. Now, as a continuation of our design principles, we also have a route advertisement configuration. Like for example, if you have, we also have a facility of local connection Microsoft Express Route. So by local connection, we mean that if you have a data center in Pune region and you are connected to only to that data center using a local express route, then you don't need to get the routes of another regions, like maybe a USA region, maybe of your Asia Pacific or US Central region, right? So for this, you can filter the routes, and you will only get the routes which are available for that Pune region only. You'll not be getting any extra routes. So this is known as your route advertisement configuration. Now another as you can see from the diagram also, let me zoom it a bit. So where you have your network, and through the partners, for redundancy you have two connections, and with these two connections you are simultaneously connecting to the Microsoft services and even to another virtual networks. And if you ask me how I connected to another virtual networks, the answer is simple: through maybe a site-to-site VPN or maybe a virtual WAN. Because a virtual WAN, as we have seen earlier, that it implements a hub and spoke network. So a virtual WAN will work as an umbrella, and all of the services will be connecting ultimately to your virtual WAN, right? So you can simultaneously connect to the various services and even to your virtual networks. Now, one of the use case of ExpressRoute could be that in addition to for migration purposes, in addition to your ExpressRoute, you also need an outside to side VPN connection. Like for if you are, let me make a simple diagram for you. So if you have your own data center, okay. So if you have your own data center and your requirements are that you need to migrate quickly, more quickly to cloud. You need to replicate your services, your data and all. And for that, you need a very high connection with no bandwidth. Of course, you have guessed about Azure Express Route, but in addition to Azure Express Route, can I leverage any other problem? Sorry, can I leverage any other facility? Then the answer is yes. So in addition to your Express Route, you can also deploy what we known as your site-to-site VPN connection. Maybe you can deploy your two Express Route options, but you can also deploy your site-to-site VPN connections. Now, if you ask me that what is the benefit of having both of these connections? So where yeah, so if you ask me that what is the benefit of having both of these, then the benefit is got you is redundancy. Because you know the deploying of site-to-site VPN connection is really easy. So with that, you make sure that you are using ExpressRoute as your primary connection for critical workloads. So whenever you have a critical workload, whenever you have a huge amount of data needs to be transferred, then for that purposes you can use your ExpressRoute as a primary connection. So let me increase the font size a bit. Yeah, so for this purposes you can use your ExpressRoute as a primary connection. As your primary connection, right? So with this, you make sure that your critical workloads you are not having any bandwidth issue. They are not being there is no chance of the information breach, and they are safely replicating to your Microsoft Azure cloud, or even not replicating. You can make sure that your applications are using your data which is residing your critical data which is residing on premises, maybe for various compliance needs, and there is no latency. And in addition to the primary connection, you can also make sure that you have a secondary connection. Oh, so let me draw it a bit more nicely. So for non-critical resources, for the resources that do not require very high bandwidth, the resources which do not require any special needs, then you can deploy a site-to-site VPN connection, right? So with that, you leverage both the benefits from Microsoft. This is one of the strategy for the companies for whenever they are replicating the data to Microsoft Azure, right? So moving ahead, okay, let me zoom it. Then let us move ahead. So, so we also have a concept of bidirectional forward detection. So what does that mean? So by bidirectional forward detection, as you can see from the image as well, that between your partner, that means either from your partner network or your own data center. Like if you're having your express route direct, then will be your data center. Or if you are using any other option, then you can put your partner network over here. So with this, so with bidirectional forward express, so with this, whenever you speed up the so sorry, so you can speed up the link failure detection between a Microsoft Enterprise Edge, which is also known as MSEE, because Microsoft have their own routers, right? So the routers will tell you that okay, whether they were receiving the packets, whether there is a packet has been lost or something like that. So with this, which is also known as bidirectional forward detection, you can uh, detect that okay, what packets were not reached, what packets are not able to reach, and all that, right? And it is configured by default, so you don't need to have any special configurations for this. You only need to configure your BFD for your primary and secondary devices, because we know that at the end of the day, your physical devices are connecting to Microsoft network, right? So you have to configure only those devices, but there's nothing to be done with Azure portal because it is configured by default. And you can even configure your BFD to be to the BGP. So in addition to the exchange of routes, they are also exchanging the data transfer details, that okay, whether the data is flowing in a correct manner, is there any packet loss, so on and so forth. Now there is also an encryption option for ExpressRoute. As I mentioned also, that as you can see the following diagram, it shows an example of VPN connectivity over ExpressRoute private peering, right? So where you have your VPN connected network, your on-premises network, you have your YDD network on of your on-premises, and you have a VPN connection over Express route. So as I mentioned, as I draw you show you a diagram from here also, so you can use it as a secondary connection while you are replicating your data, or maybe you're just using both the Microsoft Cloud as well as your on-premises as in a hybrid scenario. So with this, you have to deploy, of course, you have to deploy two gateways, one for your Express route and second one for your VPN. And your virtual hub, as we know, the virtual hub enables you to bring various connectivity options like VPNs, like Express route, like VPC peering, all that under a single umbrella. So with this, you can leverage connection options, right? Now, coexistence of site-to-site and Express route. So you can also make sure that you are both using your VPN and site-to-site. So as you can see the diagram as well, that you have two separate virtual network gateways, one especially dedicated to your Express route services, so that, and another one for your VPN connections. So with this, like if you have any devices connected, like we all know that there's also a point to set connectivity options. So you can make sure that in addition to your branch offices, in addition to your other data centers, you also make sure that your employees are connecting to the Azure by using VPN gateway. And through ExpressRoute, you make sure that the whatever information that employees are seeking are getting with minimum latency. Like if there is a 1 TB file of a research, imagine that you're working on a medical company, a research company. Then for those kind of scenarios, you can make sure that okay, you are leveraging both VPN and ExpressRoute as well. And as you notice over here, that both can be deployed on the same virtual network, right? So you need not to deploy a special virtual network for VPN and a special virtual network for ExpressRoute, or in this case, you also do not require a WAN to be deployed. Now you can also create your zone redundant VNet virtual network gateway in various availability zones of Microsoft Azure. Because we know that the availability zone options give you that your data is being replicated to various data centers of Microsoft Azure. So by this, as we know that we also have whenever I go to the standard VPN gateway connection, then it asks for us for availability zone. So let me show you that you. So if you go to your VPN connections, VPN gateways, local, that means your virtual network gateways, and whenever you go to the creation of standard one, then they ask you for choose, so for the choosing a availability zone. So by this you make sure that your VNet gateway is highly available. So let me grab the option for availability zone, as you can see for availability zone, right? So they ask you whether you want to be replicated to all the data centers or you want any particular data center to host this virtual network gateway. So with this, you make sure that your network is highly available and there is no downtime because of the virtual network gateway. So with this diagram, we came to know that okay, if you have various, because we all know that the virtual network gateways deploy the virtual machines behind the scenes to handle your traffic. And whenever you choose for the zone redundancy by creation of your VPN gateway, then you make sure that the machines that the VNet gateway uses is distributed across various availability zones. And if in case any data center is not available, then also the traffic is not halted. The traffic is still flowing through your VNet gateway. Now through ExpressRoute Global Reach, you can also have connection to various regions like maybe San Francisco, USA, and you can connect to your London region as well. Now, as you can see, there is also depiction of a co-location facility of Silicon Valley and here London, and then they are ultimately connecting to your virtual networks. So by connecting this, you need to require a premium express route connection, because a premium connection you are not limited to only creation of a single, you're not limited to creation of a, you're not limited to only of a particular country or particular continent. You can globally connect and you can use the Microsoft backbone networks. So you can even use your express route direct so that you can have a direct connection. Now if you ask me that okay, I have learned a lot of features about ExpressRoute. I have learned that okay, ExpressRoute can help me to solve many of the problems. How can I create an ExpressRoute? So you can go to the search bar, search for ExpressRoute circuits. So by the ExpressRoute circuit, you are actually asking for a partner network to create your ExpressRoute. If you want your direct connection, then you have to go for ExpressRoute direct. As you can see, there's two options. So with direct option, you ask Microsoft to get a one-on-one connectivity, and with ExpressRoute circuit, you connect to any partner network in between. As you can see, the ExpressRoute direct gives you ability to connect directly to Microsoft global network at peering locations, right? And the locations you can always find at this website. Then what are the peering locations? So if you ask me that okay, how can I create one circuit? Then you can go to create, choose any resource group. So let me create a new resource group. Whatever region you want, name you want. Next, click to configurations. If you are interested in knowing about that what it actually does, then you can go to this heading. So it creates a private connection from your infrastructure and all that. You can use multi-protocol MPLS, right? And provided by your network service provider. So here we have to connect to our partner network, your network service provider, and the network service provider will be connecting to your Microsoft Azure. So between the connectivity of your data center to Microsoft Azure data center, you have your network service provider residing in between. So what kind of port you want? So if you don't know anything, then you can go on this button and then you can find that okay, you need to have different ports, and these ports are actually used for connectivity purposes. So if you already have your port of your data center, then you can use that, and you have to use that okay, which partner provider you want, whether you want Airtel, whether you want AT&T. So as per your reasons, sorry, as per your needs. So like if you wanted to connect to your Chennai or Mumbai, then you can search for BSNL, and then you can find that option, right? So which peering location you want, whether you want Chennai or Mumbai. So like if your data center is in maybe your data center is in for example in Bangalore, then you can go for Chennai because Chennai is near from Bangalore, right? So BSNL will be responsible for laying down a cable from your Bangalore data center to Chennai to their facility. Now, what kind of bandwidth you want? As you can see, 10 Gbps, 50 Mbps, as per your needs, the SKUs. So with local gateway, you can only connect to the Microsoft Azure data center, which is located in the particular peering location. Like for example, let me draw that for you. Now, every peering location that you have, every peering location. So, like in case of BSNL, it could be Chennai or Mumbai. So this is actually connecting to any Microsoft Azure data center. So like if this is your Azure data center, let me write it over here. So it is your Azure. So it is physically connecting to your Azure data center. Then with local, as you can see, with local SKU, you make sure that you are only able to connect to this particular Azure data center only. So with local SKU, you make sure that only you are able to connect to this particular data center. None of the other data centers can be connected using their local SKU. So even though Microsoft has a global network, you will not be able to connect because you choose local over here. But if you choose for standard, then you can choose that in the particular geopolitical region, maybe in India, you can connect to various other data centers as well. Like in India, we have three data centers. We have India Central and India West and India South. Then you can connect to all of these data centers if you choose for standard one. So within a geopolitical region, you will be able to connect to all of these three of them. So this is the case when you choose for standard, right? So this is so when it comes to your when it comes to your premium one, then premium give you global connectivity. Now by global connectivity, I mean that with premium you can connect to any region, maybe your USA, maybe Asia, maybe another. Just give me a moment. ए भाई पॉल पॉल अंकल का फोन आ रहा है, ए पगला. Yeah, so with standard one, you can connect it to all of the three data centers. While with the premium one, you can connect to any global network. Now, here comes the billing model, whether you want a metered or a unlimited billing model. So, all inbound data that is getting into the Azure data center is free. But whenever you try to retrieve the data, then you'll be costing you charge, right? So, based on that, you can have either unlimited data transfer. So, if you want to send unlimited data, so back and forth from your Azure data center to your requested place, then you can go for unlimited one, and otherwise you can go for metered one. So you pay for what you use. So this differentiates as that Azure Express Route is no longer a very costly service. It is now not that costly. So it is a kind of value for your money. So you pay for the facilities, the extra features that you enjoy with Azure Express Route. Like if we go to the pricing section of Azure Express Route, then so as you can see for here, so as the speed of data transfer increases, then your price also increases. Now inbound data transfer is unlimited while outbound data transfer costs you money. So for data transfer you get is only 1 rupees per GB, right? So it's not a very huge cost. And you can also compare various data plans. You can also compare with the local circuit, the pricing for your standard and the premium circuit, as you can see over here, right? Now the cost for Express Route Direct you can also see from here. So always feel free to get to this pricing section. Now allow classic operations means that you can interact with classic RDFE resources. Right? So it is for legacy purposes. Otherwise, you can say it is kind of not very much beneficial for today's scenario. You can always tag their resources, and at last you can review and create. Now for overview, you can check that, and if you design an explicit deployment model, so for this we have to we are here discussing about various queues and tiers and peering locations. So as you mentioned about the local standard premium one, that it provides a free egress. That means whenever your data is getting into your Azure, it's free, but you can only connect to the data centers in that same area as your circuit. With the standard one, you can get in all in that particular geopolitical region. That means if you are in India, then the regions of data centers of all can be connected. While in premium, you have global connectivity. So here's a brief overview of the peering points. So as you can see, the global connection and the cables that are being deployed by Azure. Okay, let me zoom it. So we also discussed about the pricing options. For unlimited, you have to pay a monthly fee and then you can transfer any amount of data. For metered one, you pay only for what you used, and you also have a small a kind of monthly fee associated. So for metered one, you have to pay a fixed charge, and in addition to that, you have to pay for what kind of data you have retrieved from Azure data center to the required facility, because data getting into Azure data center is totally free. You don't have to pay for that. You only have to pay for the retrieving, so for retrieving purposes. Sorry. And also the pricing varies by various Azure regions. So we already saw that how can we deploy Azure Express Route circuit. Now for deployment of Azure Express Route gateway, we can head towards VPN gateway or your local network gateway. Click on create. Now ExpressRoute requires your route-based VPN to be created. Because we know that ExpressRoute uses BGP and MPLS protocols, then policy-based does not work in this case. You have to have a route-based VPN in that case. So you have to choose the gateway type. So there is a special you can choose for ExpressRoute. So skew whether you want high performance, ultra performance. So based on the bandwidth that you want, the virtual network that you want to connect to, it needs to have a public IP address. And at last you can review and create. So this was how you can create your Azure Express Route gateway. Now it's a simple, you can say a kind of diagram given over here. So where you can connect your on-premises to to your the Microsoft Azure, and in your Azure Virtual Network you have various tiers. That means your web tier, your business tier, and your data tier. So you have a multi-tier application, and you want to connect that virtual network with your on-premises, and you make sure that your applications, your on-premises application servers are also able to use that applications with a private connection within a high bandwidth in an encrypted manner with MACsec. So if so because I do not have any on-premises location available, so I'm sorry I cannot show you that. But as far as we have studied all of these things, that okay, how actually ExpressRoute works and what advantages we have got it. Now we also know that routers are responsible for exchanging the routes. So by routes means that okay, they advertise that okay, these are the connecting services, these are the available servers with which you can connect to, right? So as you can see from this diagram also, so the gateway actually connects to the routers, and then your routers connect eventually to your servers. Now how can you create your own circuit? As we know that whenever it comes to circuits, that means we are using any partner. And whenever we talk about direct connection, then the partners has been ruled out from the role, and you connect directly to Microsoft. So we have already seen that okay, how can you create your partner? So creation of Express Route service takes a little time, and after creating Express Route circuit, you will get an service key. And with the use of service key, you have to reach out to your partner. Like for example, in India, we have Airtel and BSNL as our partners. In case of USA, you have AT&T, you have Verizon. So you have to reach to that partner using the service key, and with the help of that service key, they will connect you to the Microsoft Azure, right? Now, how can you configure peering for Azure Microsoft Express Route deployments? So for peerings, that means so as we so with the Microsoft private peering, as we know that every virtual network have their own autonomous system number or ASN number. So with the use of that ASN numbers, once you have created your Express Route peering, then you have to give out the peer ASN. And because a pair of subnets that are not the part of any address space are reserved by the virtual networks, and those subnets will be used for Express Route peering purposes. So for this, you have to give the subnet range. You have to enable peering, and with that, you make sure that okay, whatever data that is coming from your on-premises to Microsoft Azure is able to communicate uh, right now with these two public subnets immediately, right? So this was about the private peering. And as far as Microsoft peering is concerned, so Microsoft peering is a little different from private peering. So in Microsoft peering, all you all have to give the ASN number again, but it is little different. So let me explain you. Just give me a moment. I think I do not have any peering. I do not have created the Microsoft Express route. No. Okay. Okay, I do not have anyone. So okay. So in case of Microsoft peering, actually what gets configured on your so the Microsoft Edge routers, because Microsoft also have their own routers. So those routers establish a BGP session, right, with your routers, and then they directly exchange the routes. That okay, Microsoft routers say will tell the your router that okay, I'm connected to these many services, and your router would tell that okay, I'm connected to these many services. So it is a part of direct peering connections. So you can always do that, right? So the way that you can configure is you are always welcome to head to the documentation of Microsoft Azure, and whenever you come to the documentation, you can find out the okay, how can I connect that to that. Like for example, if you go to how to guides, then you can see about okay, how can I establish a private peering, how can I establish it through portal, through PowerShell, through CLI, how can I manage the monitoring of my peerings, whether it's working fine or not, whether my data packets are being lost or something like that. So with that, you can always come to this documentation and find out whatever you need. Now, how to choose whether you need a private peering, whether you need a Microsoft peering, or you need both. So actually, Microsoft peering uses public IPs. As we know that there are various services in Microsoft like your blob storage, like your app services, which uses public IP addresses, which uses public endpoints or URLs. So with Microsoft peering, you connect to those services using the public IP, but the way that you are connected with them is not internet. They're connected through your own private connection, to your own cables. While with private peering, you have a private connection, and this is meant for virtual networks. So with the virtual network, you are using the routers of Microsoft Azure, and you're using your own routers to exchange routes and to get finally connected. So it all depends upon your need that what actually you want. And as I mentioned, that you can filter your routes based on your needs. So if you only want the routes for your Microsoft 365 services or your SharePoint Online services for any of the region like Azure Central India, Azure Canada, Azure Brazil, so you can filter the routes because getting routes for all the Azure services is totally useless for you if you are connected to any particular location or a particular data center. So you can filter the routes that you receive based on the service you are using and based on to the location you are paired with. You can always go to Microsoft Learn modules for learning more, and you can connect your Express circuit to your VNet as well. So whenever you have created your Express Route circuit, then on the left hand side you can go to connections and then you can click on add. Once you clicked on add, then you can create a connection by selecting the name of your virtual network, and then your virtual network will be connected privately to your Microsoft Azure Express Route. Now you can also connect to a globally dispersed network. That means because of the global customers, they have a variety of virtual networks, a variety of networks which are distributed all across the globe. And because you are already laid down ExpressRoute and you're very impressed by its features and its pricing, then you wanted to know a way that how can I globally connect to the Azure ExpressRoute services. So for this, you can use ExpressRoute Global Reach. So for this, you need to have an ExpressRoute premium circuit created, right? because in premium you can have a facility of connecting to all over the globe. So in the example as well, as you can see that if you have a facility in Japan, that means then you can connect to your Tokyo co-location facility, and through the Microsoft backbone network you are connecting to your US area service provider, or maybe you're connecting to your Chinese service provider, and all of that are using Microsoft global network. So oh, so with this you make sure that okay, you are using the Microsoft backbone network and you have high bandwidth and all that options enabled. Now, as you can see from the screenshots, you can enable the global peering in this way, but I'm sorry because I do not have any express route created right now. I do not have any any partner networks network, so I cannot show you in the portal that. Now, how can you improve your performance whenever it comes to bandwidth, whenever it comes to reliability? We all know that Azure Express Route is very reliable. It gives you fast data transfer, but how can you make it more fast? So there is a special feature which is known as fast path. So it is specially designed to improve your data path. That means if your data have two paths to take, whenever they wanted to connect your on-premises to Azure, maybe the very first path is of your cable to your partner network, or you have a VPN connection as well. So in that case, whether you want through which part you wanted to transfer data, then you can specify that by using fast path. Now, whenever it is enabled, FastPass sends the network traffic directly to your virtual machines, right? And it bypasses the gateway. That means it will not go to the gateway, it will not go through the checks and all, and then it will come to your virtual machine. No, it can go directly because ExpressRoute is also giving you encrypted traffic option through MACsec and MPLS. Then you can rely that okay, you can trust that okay, the data which is reaching my virtual machines in either on premises or in Azure is having the genuine traffic. And with this, because you're bypassing a long route, of course you are increasing the network speed and you're reducing the latency options, right? Now this is a simple shell script through which you can configure fast path using PowerShell. You can always go to the Microsoft Azure Learn module for learning more. Now, because access route is a kind of a specialized network connection option, so there's also a best practice to learn about various troubleshooting options, right? So for troubleshooting options, we can we know that okay, ExpressRoute gives you a layer 3 connectivity. ExpressRoute gives you that okay, you can connect not using the internet. So here address resolution protocol or ARP also comes into play. We all know that an ARP combines your MAC addresses and your IP addresses together. So it makes your connection possible between layer 3 and layer 2 in OSI model. So you're gonna also see that how can it helps us in Azure gateway. So there is a PowerShell command through which you can verify circuit provisioning and state. And whenever you run that, you can see that it is enabled in the screenshot as well. And also it is showing that provisioning state is enabled. This is your bandwidth. This is your service key, peerings and authorizations. Now, if you have got a failed message, then you can also reset it by using this shell script. And for validating your peering configuration, so whether you have a Microsoft peering or you have a private peering, you want to know that okay, whether the peering was successfully connected or not, then you can go to your Microsoft Azure Express Route circuit, go to the overview section, and at the bottom you will note the peerings, whether they're provisioned, not provisioned, what is their subnet, and whenever they were modified. So you can find out that. Now here comes address resolution protocol. We all know that ARP works on layer 2 and it combines your MAC addresses and IP addresses. So a packet which has entered into your virtual network, oh sorry, a packet which is entered into your network, then how the packet know that in that network where 100 computers are connected, to which particular computer I have to go. So for this we have an ARP. So You can also attach an ARP with ExpressRoute so that no such kind of confusion happens whenever your packet enters into your virtual network in Azure or even to your physical network in your on-premises. So you can map an ARP table which will have a mapping of IP addresses and MAC addresses.